Where is it?
Oh, sorry.
All right. Can I ask you to please put yourselves on mute? Beautiful. We'll give it another few seconds. All right, let's get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special Natural Medicine Week 2025 webinar, proudly hosted by ATMS. My name is Vinita, even though it says Annie. Annie is our CEO, who's currently flying from Brisbane back to Sydney. So I'm just taking over. I'm the operations manager at ATMS, and I'm delighted to be here with you tonight as we explore the topic, Heart and Vitality, a natural approach to cardiovascular wellness. Sorry, that was a mouthful. We are very pleased to welcome our presenter, Brad McEwen, who will be sharing his insights and expertise on supporting heart health naturally. The session will run for approximately an hour, with time at the end for your questions. So please feel free to pop them as we go. Yeah. And again, thank you for joining. Let's get started. So Brad, take it over.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, everyone. Good evening. Hope you're well, and good day to those watching in different time zones. So I'm Dr. Brad McEwen. I'm a naturopath, herbalist, nutritionist, all of the above. I pretty much love what I do. There's a bit of excitement there, including, there it is, my slide's not turning over. So welcome to today's presentation. So I'd like to start off by saying that heart health is something I've always been very interested in since early on in my career. Not just the holistic side of naturopathy and nutrition, of course, but a lot to do with the heart, because I've always believed in, strongly in the matters of the heart and how it guides us. And, people say go with your heart or follow your heart, etc. And that sort of got me interested into this physical, mental, sort of emotional approach to health, but also that spiritual heart that we talk about in a lot of areas. So I think it's a quite exciting topic, and hope you have a lot of fun with it. There are some areas that are quite sort of technical as we go through, and that's because it is a technical topic. But as we go through, we'll be explaining all the different areas. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So a little bit about me. I am a naturopath, herbalist, nutritionist. I've been an ATMS member for over 25 years. And as part of my background, I've always been interested in nutrition, herbs, and just holistic health from a very young age. I got the bug, as they say, I'm watching Star Wars as a young fella, learning all about the force and the vital force and everything that surrounds us. And that sort of got me interested in health. And then in my teenage years, or later on in primary school into teenage years, I learned all about Sir Isaac Newton and forces of gravitation and everything, again, forces. So it kept coming up to me. And then when I went into study naturopathy and nutrition, etc., we learned about the vital force and how it guides us. So there's a lot of that in the background. I'm quite excited that we can talk about it tonight, in particular with heart health. I've been a presenter for a long time as well. My educational background is a PhD from the University of Sydney, where I investigated cardiovascular health with omega-3, platelet function, coagulation, and I have qualifications in naturopathy, nutrition, herbal medicine, sports medicine, etc. So it's quite an exciting time. I like to get involved with presenting and reviewing articles and writing journal articles. I write for the Journal of Australian Traditional Medicine Society, among others, and it's good to be a part of such a exciting field. Very much love what we do. So the brief for tonight, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be looking at a number of different areas. So optimum cardiometabolic, so even I stumbled on it. Optimum cardiometabolic health. It's central for overall health and well-being. And we'll be talking about how that's, it has that central core being in the middle of the chest, just slightly to the left. And how nutrition plays various roles as risk factors in chronic disease, as well as improving cardiometabolic health and overall health and wellness. And then we'll be sort of diving into physical activity, quality sleep, and lifestyle medicine along the way. So there's quite a few topics we'll be covering tonight. I was asking earlier about, can we have like a full day to cover this topic, because it's such a big topic for us to get excited about, but I've been told we've got to stick to 1 hour. So I'm sorry. So one of the things I want you to remember as we learn, and that's learning here tonight, learning all the other Natural Medicine Week seminars and webinars and topics, and just generally speaking in life, have fun while you learn. It just makes it so much easier to, get out there and about it and just have fun while you learn. It's pretty cool. So let's start off. What is cardiometabolic health? So generally speaking, it's the heart, the blood vessels such as the arteries, the veins, the capillaries, etc., and how the body utilizes and stores energy, and then how it uses it to get the system up and running. And it's the overall health of this cardiovascular metabolic system. And it's quite large when you sort of lay it out in the system. So cardiometabolic syndrome so going back to the slide, that's the health. So looking at the overall health and wellness of the system, cardiometabolic syndrome is the constellation, the interrelationship of all the different signs and symptoms and, let's say, disease states. I don't like saying that, but different condition states and related to cardiometabolic health when it goes the wrong way, when it becomes unhealthy. And some of these are a combination. So it could be vascular calcification. So that's when the arteries get hard. So you would have heard of, hardened arteries or atherosclerosis, for example. Arterial stiffness. Those two are quite interesting. So I want you to imagine the hose. You've all got a garden hose and you put through water at low pressure. The water comes through nice and easy and nice and fine, so to say. But if you turn the hose on too hard, the hose stiffens and the water gets forced through too hard, creating friction in there. And if you do that enough times with the garden hose, it gets leaks, for example, it gets damage to the hose structure. Same thing with your vascular system. Same thing with your arteries. And then what the body does, in all of its infinite wisdom, can lay down calcium plaques, which help protect it from damage. But if you do that too much, that's when you hear about, strokes and heart attacks, etc., because it's closed off, because it's become too damaged. Insulin resistance, you all would have heard of. This is where the body cells are resistant to the effect of insulin. So it's not insulin resistance, it's the effect of insulin. So what we're looking at here is when the body absorbs and utilizes glucose for its cells, we have, I'm just trying to think, I'll just use my hands. So there's your hand, and then you have these different receptors. I'll just go a bit closer. So you have these different receptors that go out of the cell that actually react to the insulin in the blood to drive or take across the glucose into the cells for utilization. And insulin resistance is where that signaling doesn't work. The cell's screaming out for glucose, I need glucose. The bloodstream, the body's saying, you've got it. And the cell's saying, I don't have it. What do I do? I want to go carby carbs, chippy chips. I want to have lots of fresh carbohydrates to fuel up the bloodstream full of glucose. And over time, that keeps happening. And at the end of it, that's when the type 2 diabetes develops, because you're not able to utilize the glucose effectively and it's too much in the bloodstream and not enough going into the cells, but you're still craving for more. So that's part of that craving complex. That's a full day on its own, talking about that. Altered platelet function and coagulation. So generally speaking, platelets have a 7 to 10 day, up to 14-day lifespan. They keep us alive. And if you all jump up and down right now, you've activated your platelets because the body thinks there's a problem. Even clapping your hands, the body thinks it's a problem, starts to activate the process and then realizes it's not a problem and slows it down. But when you have that altered platelet function, you're overdoing it, and that's when you can end up with clots. And that's, quite bad. Increased blood pressure, think of the hose. Water pressure going through the hose. Glucose metabolism, as mentioned earlier. Then you have different lipids in the body. So you may have heard of course, HDLs, LDLs, VLDLs, chylomicrons, etc. Now, the LDLs, the low-density lipoproteins, take a lot of nutrients out to the body, such as the fat-soluble vitamins, and the HDLs bring things back. People like to say there's good and there's bad cholesterol. We need to move away from that because all cholesterol is essential. It's the ratios we need to look at. We'll mention that later on, as well as abdominal obesity, because we have the increased obesity around the midriff area. And with that increased fat, that can store inflammatory mediators, leading to more fire in the belly, fire in the system, causing more issues. So what kind of conditions are related to cardiometabolic system under this constellation of different backgrounds? Coronary heart disease, ischemic stroke, type 2 diabetes, sleep apnea is highly related. Did a sleep apnea study a few years ago with some people with coagulation issues. Chronic disease, so the kidneys, so they're not filtrating right. The kidneys regulate blood pressure. through renin and angiotensin, for example. There's different hormone levels and different enzymes working in the body to regulate our blood pressure. And in this case, the kidneys are not working properly, therefore affecting blood pressure control. Cardiovascular mortality, so that's death from cardiovascular disease, heart disease, that's just your heart attacks and strokes, for example. And then total mortality, which is your overall death rate. Quite sort of morbid talking about that part there, but it is a major part. You will hear stories about people surviving heart attacks. I had a friend a number of years ago where he was doing gardening on the weekend and had a bit of pain in his arms, etc. So he just didn't worry about it because he was doing 2 days worth of very high, heavy gardening. He went into his doctor on a Tuesday as per normal because he already had an appointment and was sent to hospital. He actually had a heart attack without knowing and had 3 stents put in. So sometimes it creeps up. So what we need to do is start planning ahead for strengthening our cardiometabolic system, which is what we're about to talk about. It is still the leading cause of death worldwide, and that's something that we want to change. We're looking at longevity, and with longevity, we have an increased lifespan, but we need an increased health span as well, which is the years of living healthier. Because, we all want to, well, maybe not everyone, but we all want to live to 100 or more just to reach that century in cricket kind of thing. And one of the topics I was asked to bring up for tonight briefly is the link between depression and heart health. Because mental health and cardiovascular and heart health are very highly related. As I mentioned earlier, we say go with your heart, follow your heart, and the heart does feel. And if there's a lot of anger or a lot of stress or a lot of emotion, you can actually feel it in the chest sometimes. Your heart starts pounding, but you can feel that constriction. You know something's happening, it's so tight. And that's because there's this whole stress response happening that you don't have full control over because you've been chased by the saber-toothed tiger or the grizzly bear or something in the past, and the body doesn't realize what the difference is. So we need to be very careful with, mental health issues are on the rise, depression, anxiety, stress, post-traumatic stress, etc. So we need to keep an eye on this so that you don't have unrelated heart risk that's seen as anxiety when it's actually a heart issue playing up. And as the notes say, because you can see as I'm talking, there's all these different constrictions. The endothelium, which is the lining of the arteries, is having different issues with it, with inflammation, as well as calcium deposition in there, as well as inflammation. Now, with inflammation, there's inflammation and inflammation. So generally, if you trip over and hurt your ankle and you sort of twist a little bit, you need that inflammation to start the healing process. That's normal. But if you have chronic inflammation, chronic fire, that will actually cause the damage. And that can happen to the heart very easily because it's quite a vigorous heart pumping action. So now for the good news, because we've sort of got through a lot of the negative side of leading into today. And I wanted to lay the ground for us to start thinking about, overall heart health and overall sort of vitality. And this is the good, exciting news that we're going through now. I want to have a bit of a reminder right now that this presentation is for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for medical advice. If symptoms persist, talk to a health professional. Always read the label and follow directions for use. So as a general thing with education, we just need to note this because there are a number of different amazing vitamins, minerals, herbs, etc., that I'm going to bring up in brief tonight. But also at the same time, if you have any health issues, talk to a qualified accredited health practitioner, such as one from Australian Traditional Medicine Society, for example. You can go onto the website and double check up for members. So what we want to do now is start thinking about the heart, start thinking about the functions of the heart, what's happening in the heart, what's happening in the rest of the body, and start thinking back. So historically, the heart or the body was seen as separate parts to each other. So there was always a focus on the heart and the blood vessels, but not the rest of the body. But in the last few decades, holistic health has really been taking over, or taking off, not taking over, taking off, where we start looking at the mind, body, spirit, as well as each body system, each organ, each tissue, each cell as part of a greater being. So there's that synergistic effect that we talk about where everything works together. So the sum of all parts is greater than the individual parts, collective. And that's something I want you to think about tonight, that you can work on someone's stress levels, improve their stress levels, and their blood pressure goes down. Improve their anxiety, improve their depression, for example, work with post-traumatic stress disorder, and look at these different health conditions and actually find a way of improving and taking the stress off the body, and that will automatically start to have greater effects, which is quite exciting. So looking at what we're going to be talking about tonight, we need to be starting to think about, as I said, multiple organs, overall metabolism, inflammation and anti-inflammation, and anything else you can think of that is a combination of different effects related to the heart, cardiometabolic system, because it's quite an exciting topic. 12 pillars. So I thought I'd talk about the 12 pillars first as we go into this. And that's first, do no harm. So these 12 pillars are based on naturopathy, vitalism, etc. So first, do no harm. Let's do no harm to yourself, but also others with your words, because anger can actually cause a lot of heart attacks, for example. Treat the whole person, see the person as a whole. As we said, we're looking at holistic health. Identify and treat the cause. So if the cause is driving to work in peak hour traffic every day, person still needs to work, but could we be looking at different meditation techniques? So it's not always removing the cause, because that can't always happen. If you have an angry boss that's yelling at you all the time, you can't remove them because you'll get into some trouble. So instead you work on some techniques how you can help deal with the process. Different meditation techniques is always a good way to do that. Prevention, health promotion, which is what we're talking about tonight, health promotion. Remember the healing power of nature and that of the body. The body heals. It knows what to do. The idea is we're going to help it a lot. That's one of the main things. The health professional is a teacher. Regular hydration, which is what I've got my bottle next to me. So always have regular hydration. Typically with hydration, it's for those who know the shot glass, it's a shot glass of water for every kilo of body weight. So 30 mils per every kilo body weight. So you go 0.3 times whatever your body weight is, and that's how many liters of water a day or fluids you should be having as a regular thing. If you're a tradie or you're working out in the sun, you're an athlete, etc., you need extra fluids. And yes, you can have tea, coffee, and other things. I won't go too much into it because I'll lose the night, but tea and coffee aren't actual diuretics as people say they are. It's the caffeine in there as a diuretic. And if you ask someone if you have a large mug of tea, of course you're going to go to the toilet. So just replace it with water and it's the same action. Nourish with whole foods. So I'll talk about some nutrients tonight, but start thinking about whole foods as well. Mediterranean diet. Support with herbal medicines, physical daily activity and regular movement. I have one of these iWatches, which is a friend and a foe. It makes me get up every hour. It makes me move around. It says, get up. Or doesn't. It actually says movement or whatever it says. And I get up and move, and it helps with like my physical activity. And I make sure I have a 30-minute walk at the end of every day. It's my walking off the day. So before I've done from here, I went for a walk this afternoon. It was like 4:45 or something. And I went for a half-hour walk, and I just got out there in the fresh air before it got dark and just took in, the nice air and sort of walk off the day, getting ready for tonight. And regular movement in general speaking, daily physical activity doesn't have to be going for runs or jogs or gym or anything. It's just movement. I always have a saying is I typically don't run. I just walk and walk fast. If you see me running, go in the same direction I'm going because I'm running from something. That's my thing with that kind of level of exercise. And mindfulness, being mindful of who you are, what you do, what you say, where you are. And sleep and rest plays very, very big roles. I prescribe timeouts. So this last weekend just gone, I had 2 days up in Byron Bay and I had an amazing 2 days. Got up there early, left late, and just went away and had my time out. No work, which surprised everyone. No emails, nothing. It's the first time I've done that in a long time, and I actually had to go away to do it. So have your timeouts. So going into the more therapeutic side of tonight, Mediterranean diet, we all know what it is. It's a high characteristic diet of fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes and nuts and seeds and olive oil, etc. Of course, always be aware of allergies. If you have an allergy to nuts, don't start eating nuts, etc. But think about all the different foods, all the different colors. It's something that you think there's so many different colorful foods out there you can have for the polyphenols, for example, and the different caffeic acids and all of these flavonoids and polyphenols, etc., have strong antioxidant protectant effects. They can protect the eyes from damage, for example, protect the skin, protect the organs, the tissue, and they're really good protectants of the body. And that's something as simple as eating fruit and veg. I know, it's just so simple. Alternative sources of protein, such as poultry, fish, eggs, and dairy, and less red meats, for example. Some people may not like dairy. They may have an issue with digesting it. So don't have dairy. You have dairy alternatives. Just, again, always have a look at the label and check everything. And moderation of alcohol, such as red wine during meals. Now, I've had a couple of patients in the past that started drinking red wine because they misunderstood what I said during some consultations. If you normally don't drink alcohol, you don't have to drink red wine. You can actually get some, high grape sort of juices and eat grapes, etc. With the skins on, because the resveratrol is actually in the skin protecting the grapes from sun damage. So, for example, I eat an apple a day or more, 1 or 2 apples a day. And that is with the skin because that has the protectant in there from the sun, the ultraviolet radiation is in the skins. And always think whole foods. Now, with the Mediterranean diet, I could do a whole session on this. Just wanted to bring up briefly, of course, that the Mediterranean diet has so many different health benefits, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, metabolic, etc. And it just has so many applications. And I read a journal article while thinking about this presentation, and they're like, is the Mediterranean diet over? And I'm like, well, no. But they sort of had different, commentary on it. And in the end, they were just talking about a lot of new diets that are around, which are actually derived from the Mediterranean diet as a backbone or a skeleton to it, so to say. So for me, I'm thinking Mediterranean diet is one of the most basic broad spectrum diets, and you can add your own stuff to it very easily. As I said, fruit, veg, nuts, seeds, it's actually not difficult. It's not an overly special diet. It's the quality and quantity of it that makes a big, big difference. A lot of the health benefits, of course, are lower heart disease, cardiometabolic disease, dementias, type 2 diabetes, among others. A lot of chronic diseases are improved through Mediterranean diet. And additional benefits, of course, are improved mental health and increased longevity. Vitamin K2. Now, this is a fat-soluble essential vitamin. We have a saying that vitamin K2, everyone should have some, because it just does so many different things. And I wanted to focus on the brief points for tonight. Vitamin K2 is an essential fat, soluble vitamin. It works in various different ways by protecting the arteries from calcification, as well as keeping the blood flowing. It does work in, coagulation by regulating it. Vitamin K1, for example, stays in the liver. It lives in the liver and works for coagulation pathways there, whereas vitamin K2 works throughout the body. And that's the exciting thing about it. It protects the arteries from the calcification and it maintains its fluidity. It's essential for production of prothrombin, coagulation factors, etc. And the point I was just mentioning earlier is it reduces and or prevents the calcium deposition. Now, they've had studies showing 12 to 15-year-old, I was going to say children, but they're sort of not children, preteens and teenagers having atherosclerosis as a 56-year-old equivalent, just due to poor diet and lifestyle. And that's, I'll say, pretty sad, if I can say that. So there's a lot of things we can do for younger people to start actually having their diet and lifestyle improved for a longer, happy, healthier life. However, I will say, and I forgot to mention this earlier, whether you're 15 or 50 or a 99, you can start now. You can actually start doing everything you need to do to improve your health and quality of life starting tonight. That's the best way to do it. It's antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory, and vitamin K2 has also been found to work with brain signaling pathways as well. So they're looking at it, for example, with Alzheimer's disease. And that could be seen as type 2 diabetes. You may have type 3 diabetes, I should say, you may have heard some people say, just due to the oxidative stress, as well as the inflammation and cardiometabolic effects on the brain. So vitamin K2 is essential, and I do prescribe it a lot. A lot of doses you'll see on the market is 180 micrograms. Just for those, if you want to know particular dosage, is 180 micrograms per day. And what I got next slide is a study showing it was a good study. It went for 3 years, which is always nice. And as part of this study, they looked at the effect on arterial health, in this case, arterial stiffness. To have a study run for 3 years, it costs a lot of money and a lot of people, so you don't always get a lot of people in the study itself. This is 244 postmenopausal women, and what we call healthy, which means they have no cardiovascular disease in this case. They received either a placebo or vitamin K2, 180 micrograms per day for 3 years. And then they're tested for different parameters. And one of the things that's exciting is there was quite a few really good exciting benefits from the vitamin K2. But one of them was a decreased velocity of the carotid femoral pulse wave. Now, what that means is, to break it down, is carotid is here, and the femoral is in your legs, so I can't jump up and show you, but it starts from here. It's measuring the pulse wave from your carotid artery down into your femoral artery, and it's measuring the pulse wave velocity. And this is a gold standard measurement. And what you want to do is, people think, oh, you want the velocity to be fast. And you think, well, okay, that makes sense. No, you don't. Because fast means there's more hardening of the arteries, meaning less resistance. So think about it. If you're walking on a path and it's, you can walk faster. If you're walking on a path that's flooded with water on it, you walk slower. That's your blood flow. So you've got your blood flow, and it's allowing for the flow. So the velocity is always slower in healthier pulse waves. So if it's faster, that means there's hardening of the arteries, arterial stiffness, and it's not what you want it to be. So you want it to be, good in that area. So there was less regional arterial stiffness as well. Another thing that was exciting is there was a subgroup with higher load and local stiffening of the carotid artery had improvements in that area. Another study very similar to this also found that vitamin K2 improved bone density in areas of the lower spine, lumbar spine, etc., for osteoporosis. I want you to imagine that. So vitamin K2 does work in a lot of main areas, and the bone is a reservoir of minerals that could be utilized. So vitamin K2, should everyone have some? Pretty much yes. There is some concern, I will say though, there is some concern with people with warfarin, because warfarin doesn't play well with anyone. So if you are taking warfarin, always consult your medical practitioner before you change anything in your diet, lifestyle, and medications, because any minor change can play a big, big role. Active folate. So you may have heard of folic acid. In this case, this is active folate, 5-MTHF, levometholate glucosamine, for example, is a form. And this is the same form as what the body uses. So when you consume folates from your diet, as in like green leafies or folic acid, the body needs to convert it for a wide chain of different events to make it easier to explain. And part of that is on the bottom line there, MTHFR. So it's methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase is one of the enzymes that activate and metabolizes folate to its active form. And some people don't do that properly or don't do it well, for example. So they need a higher level of folate activity in the body, or they become more deficient. In this case, if you use active folate, 5-MTHF, you're bypassing some of the mechanisms in a positive way, making it easier for the body to utilize the folates. So it's a nice and easy way to think about it. 1-carbon metabolism, so this is part of the energetic pathways, hormones, enzymes, detoxification pathways, methylation as well. Amino acid metabolism, so our body uses amino acids in various different ways. So you may think of amino acids such as, some water, sorry. In sports, people talk about it in sports and athletes, for example, for amino acids for muscle growth and energy. But amino acids also make up our DNA, make up our cell structure, make up our neurotransmitters, serotonin, melatonin, adrenaline, different hormones. So if we don't utilize the amino acids effectively, we can have other health issues. Folate actively metabolizes those pathways. Purine and pyrimidine, they're the technical terms for like our DNA regulation and repair. And along with vitamin B3, nicotinamide works in that pathway. Another vitamin is nicotinamide mononucleotides, NMN, also works with DNA repair and methylation pathways. And MTHFR polymorphisms, they increase the risk of various different health conditions, particularly cardiometabolic disease. And in this case, I can say to you the prevalence in the population, which means the number of people in the population, is we could be looking anywhere between 20 to 30% of the Australian population will have this issue. And that is because it's a genetic issue. So therefore, it's happened somewhere in your family chain, and then they've had children, they've had children, they've had children, they've had children, and you've compounded it along the way. So you will find that if it's in the genetic tree of your family, it's more likely that you'll have that health issue as well with this metabolism pathway. But it is not the be-all and end-all. That's one thing I want you to remember. It's not the be-all and end-all. So if you think of it that way, it's a lot of things we can do to help it. Vitamin B2, vitamin B3, B6, B12. There's a lot of different nutrients that work with metabolizing this pathway more effectively. Tocotrienols. I love the tocotrienols. I love the other nutrients that we already talked about already. The interesting point about tocotrienols are they are the next generation vitamin E. And what that means is you may have all heard of tocopherols, which has been around for nearly 100 years, I think it is. Tocotrienols are a different form of vitamin E, and they're found in different parts of the plants, and different plants such as the annatto, which is imaged here. Now, one of the things I want you to note is that vitamin E, tocopherols, is a very potent anti-inflammatory antioxidant, for example. And what it does, it helps protect the cell membrane from damage. I've got my little cap there. And what I want you to imagine is it stays on the outside of the cap. The vitamin E protects the cells from damage. The tocotrienols have this biphasic tail that allows it to go into the cell, protecting the cell from the inside out and the outside in, because it also sits on the cell membrane. So it's quite exciting that we can have this greater anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effect of the cell, protecting it from damage, essentially. And it has a higher level of intake into the cells, as well as, exhibiting all different pathways. There's a lot of research showing the health benefits, primarily as antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and cholesterol lowering. But on top of that, they're looking at non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which has a new name now that I just can't remember, sorry. And a number of other related conditions related to like bone health and other cardiovascular conditions, because it has this antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, protectant effect, which is quite exciting for a very simple ingredient. And you can see it actually has a really beautiful reddish color when you actually powder it. It's really pretty. Magnesium. The thing to note about magnesium is it's one of the essential minerals we utilize in the body every single day for 300 different enzymatic reactions. It plays a very major role in heart health, brain health, musculoskeletal health, cell membrane health. It does quite a lot of areas. And one of the things I want you to remember is that magnesium can be utilized for most health conditions because such a wide range. So far, the ingredients we've talked about, or the nutrients, sorry, cover wide ranges of area. But when you take them together, the synergy is beautiful. Blood glucose regulation, insulin metabolism, different activity of the insulin receptors, it improves the reactivity, and lipid metabolism. So lipid metabolism is the fats that you're eating and the fats that you're storing, as well as the HDLs and LDLs that were mentioned earlier, because they're forms of lipids. So we're able to utilize the lipids more effectively in the body to use them as fuels, but also as cell membrane integrity to protect it from damage. And there's a lot of research where they look at populations, for example, and they say, let's analyze the population of Sydney, Brisbane, etc. I won't go through all the cities in Australia, around the world. I want you to imagine your city. They grab a population group and they analyze the foods they eat, and they analyze then all the different health conditions. And what they find is higher intakes of certain foods and certain nutrients can then be related to a relationship. So an inverse relationship is this, is the seesaw. So I want you to imagine the higher the intake of magnesium, the lower the risk of heart disease and fasting glucose levels, for example, lower. But if you change that seesaw, you now have a lower intake of magnesium. You have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, fasting glucose issues, type 2 diabetes, etc. So that seesaw effect. So I'm not saying go out tomorrow morning and buy a ton of magnesium. It's a matter of just going out there and making sure that you have good quality magnesium foods, and you can take a magnesium supplement. The annatto tocotrienols, for example, I recommend 250 milligrams a day, for example, which I forgot to say in the previous slide. And the magnesium around about 150 to 300 milligrams. But again, always check with a health professional if you're not sure of doses. Ubiquinol. I love ubiquinol. Well, actually, I love everything I'm talking about tonight, so I have to be careful of excitement. Ubiquinol, so it's coenzyme Q10. Now, I've started using coenzyme Q10 in patients since 1999, when it was first available as ubiquinol in a product. I can't mention product names. The product's no longer around, but it was 50 milligrams. And they actually tested it in the Sydney athletes for the Olympics for year 2000. And they didn't notice the results they were hoping for with, the energetics, energy metabolism, and etc. And that is because athletes need a higher dose compared to the average person. So when they worked that out, they started using higher doses of 150, 200, 300 milligrams per day. They were getting, the results, what you can sort of see on screen. Mitochondrial energetics, energetic pathways. People didn't feel as tired at the end of the day, for example. Their work performance improved, their athletic performance improved, their inflammation reduced, their oxidative stress levels reduced. They had improved vasodilation, which is the arteries opening up to allow more blood flow that's not as tight as the hose of water, as mentioned. And improving cognitive function. So coenzyme Q10 works with memory, cognition, learning ability, etc. I take ubiquinol each day myself for these benefits, among others. And it's quite a powerful or potent lipid-soluble antioxidant. It is one of the top lists of ingredients, nutrients that we could utilize in cardiovascular and cardiometabolic health. Omega-3 is one of my favorites. I did my PhD on omega-3 on platelet function and coagulation. And what I found was using a low dose, because I used a low dose study to prove a principle, improve the platelet function and coagulation parameters, more so in healthy people versus people who already had a heart attack. And that's because of the dose requirements. So people who have already had a heart attack or stroke, for example, need a higher dose. Now, the interesting thing with omega-3 is it does work with what you can see on the screen here with lipid profile, platelet function, aggregation, the stickiness of platelets. It reduces that so you clot well, but not too much. And it lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease and other sort of chronic disease states, as well as reducing the effects of depression, stress, anxiety, inflammation, which can compound heart health. So it has this greater effect. Now you could use good quality fish oil. Omega-11 is found in certain fish that amplifies the effect of 1 + 1 = 3 of omega-3 found in the fish. And you can also use the algae, or there's particular plants that have high levels of omega-3 as well. You may have heard of ahi flower, for example. So there's a lot of different sources of the omegas that you can look at. Doesn't always have to be fish, as an example. Hawthorn is a herb. Now, one of the exciting things about hawthorn is I was involved with a journal article a few years ago. It has a very, very long history of use for heart health. Now, hawthorn, not the AFL club, hawthorn is a very potent anti-inflammatory and antioxidant as part of its mechanisms of action, and it regulates blood pressure. It's one of its main uses that it's been shown to do after various research. And there's a lot of different studies out there that you can read, but it's one of the main, ingredients for heart. Now, berberine containing herbs. Now, berberine's picked up the last few years. You may have heard about berberine in different news articles, online, etc. Now, one of the things about berberine is, as a health professional, naturopath nutritionist, we've been using berberine containing herbs for decades, or longer for those who have been around longer doing a health professional. And Berberis vulgaris, for example, Berberis aristata and Philodendron amaresti. they're the main ones. You've also got Hydrastis canadensis golden cell that contain berberine. And berberine has this really good potent effect. It's been likened to the GLP-1 agonists that you may have seen in the news that people take in Australia and overseas for weight loss. So berberine has a very similar effect with the way how it works with the glucose and carbohydrate metabolism, glucose metabolism, regulation of insulin to allow better glucose to be metabolized, etc. So the interesting thing about berberine is the last few years it's really picked up. Let's say last 5, it's picked up big time because people have realized the health benefits of berberine. I've been prescribing it for decades, like I said, in a lot of patients and a lot of the public as well with different seminars, webinars, and I find it very, very useful. It's a tricky herb because a tricky ingredient in herb because it's quite bitter. It's quite strong with flavor. So by putting it into different powders and liquids, it's very difficult for some people to take. But the tricky thing is bitters are good for you. Bitters activate the liver, the digestion, part of the detoxification pathways. It actually activates things. So if we sweeten it up, it's going to have the result of nearly opposite to what you're looking at. So people put in a capsule or tablet is normally the best way to take it, for example. But if you're willing and strong enough to have it in a powder, mix it into your favorite smoothie or something else so you can cover the bitterness. Try not to put any sweets in there, for example. Try and cover it up with a smoothie. That's probably the best way to do it. I've had some people put it in cordials and different things, and I'm like, no, we're trying to stop that sugary effect, etc. So we're trying, it defeats the purpose of it. So put in good quality smoothies. And it has, I won't go into the detail because it's a big, metabolic pathway. But it works with the sirtuins, it works with the AMPK, the kinase pathways, with fatty acid metabolism, glucose regulation, cellular longevity. It's a lot of detail for tonight because we're nearly finished. So I want you to imagine it has a bigger role that we're still learning about. We're going to hear more and more about berberine throughout the years to come. It's doing great benefits. Its only drawback, as I said, is its bitterness. What else can I say? Chocolate. It wouldn't be a webinar without me going on about chocolate. Chocolate is one of the best medicines in the universe. I love it. Everyone should have some, as well as K2 and all the other ingredients we talked about tonight, other nutrients. Anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, platelet regulation, reduces thrombosis. It works with the arteries and blood flow. It's one of the perfect medicines that we should have daily. They did a study a few years ago and they worked out upon populations, the higher intake of chocolate, the higher number of Nobel Peace Prizes were won, Nobel Prizes. So let's do it. Let's build up our chocolate levels. It's really good for you. I love chocolate, as you can guess, but what you're looking for is the cacao, C-A-C-A-O, not the cocoa, C-O-C-O-A. Cocoa is normally like 50 to 60, 70% sugar. So that's like the watered down version of it. You need the cacao, C-A-C-A-O, cacao. And that's the quality chocolate. 70%, it's quite bitter. Again, that's the good stuff. Again, modulate glucose metabolism, endothelial dysfunction, regulates blood pressure, reduces inflammation, oxidative stress, insulin resistance. It's the elixir of life, chocolate, elixir of life. And it regulates the lipids as well. So it regulates our low density and very low density lipoproteins as well as our oxidized. So I want you to imagine the oxidized LDL is like a golf ball and the normal LDL is like a tennis ball. If you throw a tennis ball up against a window, it just bounces back. But if you throw a golf ball against a window, it can crack it. And that's what that oxidized LDL is doing to your arteries, creating damage, leading to those health issues that we mentioned earlier today. So chocolate is the way. But I've got to move on. Meditation. Now, I meditate every day at various times of the day. Start off with a good sort of stretch and meditation, just close my eyes and just think of nothing. And I do it throughout the day at work. I did it a bit before this presentation and just sort of sat there and just closed my eyes and meditated and prepared myself, knowing I was going to go off track easily. And the thing about meditation, reduce blood pressure, improve cognitive function, memory, focus, attention, reduces stress, anxiety, nervous tension, depression, etc. Overall, cardiometabolic health. Meditation just does so much. And people ask me, "Oh, how do you meditate? How hard is it?" And I say to people, just sit down in a quiet space. I was in Byron Bay, like I mentioned, just walked onto the beach and just breathe it in. You can go into the bush, backyard, doesn't matter where you go, sit it in front of the TV if you want, but just, just sit there and just relax and just let it flow. And you'll notice you'll start meditating. You don't have to have any particular rituals or anything else. It's the slowing down, the timing out of the meditation, and it will come to you. It will work. So sleep is very, very important as well. 6 to 9 hours a night. The research has shown, which is quite controversial in the past, but it's more realistic now. Anyone who had less than 6 hours of sleep had various different health conditions and heart attacks, strokes, different risk, etc. People had more than 9, such as 10, 11, had the same health conditions. And we're trying to realize what it was. And what I believe is two ends of the spectrum. If you have too much sleep, there's not enough get up and go for the body to keep the metabolism up and running. It's running at a lower metabolic rate. And not enough sleep is you're running at an overly high metabolic rate because you're trying to keep the body active for longer during the day. So it's this weird thing. So 6 to 9 hours, anywhere between that, the research is showing, good quality sleep is useful. And if you find it hard to sleep, meditation will help. Don't try to sleep because the body will resist it. Don't count sheep because that activates the arithmetic, the mathematical mind. There's 1, there's 2, there's 10, there's 20. The brain becomes active. Don't stimulate it with math. Just, wind yourself down. And some methods are actually imagining, when you lay there, that your left leg is becoming relaxed. Your right leg is becoming relaxed. Your shoulders are relaxed. And you can actually tell yourself that in your mind to start thinking about it. And the body will start responding. And it's the word relax. The legs are relaxed. Your mind is relaxed. You're actually telling your system what to do in a way. So it's quite exciting. It's very simple, actually. Physical activity, movement, like I said, I go for a walk every single day. During the day, I get up and move around every hour. I work in the office, so I'm actually up and about. Sometimes meetings, I'll get up and walk around, which can be annoying for some, but hey, it's my health. And just become active. And you'll find that it's very beneficial for a wide range of different health conditions, as you can see listed here. And it's also part of the meditation. It's part of the movement. You can actually walk things off or think. So if I have an important task, I'm formulating a product for a brand, and I need some ideas for the formulation, I'll go for a walk. And during that walk, I'll go, I should combine some Berberis vulgaris with some hawthorn and some vitamin K2. Like I'll start thinking of a formula that I can then formulate for the people I work with, and that product will be out in the market in 4 to 6 months' time, for example. We'll make it and you'll see it on the market. So it's a very simple thing to do, and getting good sleep and rest. Just to recap, because we are winding down, nutrition, Mediterranean diet, as mentioned, vitamin K2, active folate, the tocotrienols, magnesium, ubiquinol, omega-3, chocolate. So the typical doses, Mediterranean diet, every day. Vitamin K2, again, these are just doses from the studies. If you're not too sure, speak to a health professional. 180 micrograms per day. Active folate, around about 200 to 400 micrograms per day. Tocotrienols, 250 to 500 milligrams per day. Magnesium, around about 150 for most people. 150 milligrams is good, but you can actually go higher to like 300. Ubiquinol is around the same dosage, 150 to 300 milligrams per day. Omega-3 can have several thousand milligrams per day, so a number of capsules depending on your heart health. And chocolate every day. Cacao, remember. Check your spelling. Done the hand movement. Herbal medicines, berberine containing herbs like berberine vulgaris, aristata, hawthorn, ginkgo, turmeric. I didn't go into turmeric tonight because of time, but turmeric does so many wonderful things. Yes, you can have a phospholipid bound or a black pepper bound or anything else, or you can just have turmeric. It covers, liver health, digestion, blood glucose. It does cover a wide range of areas. And again, lifestyle medicines, this is stuff we can do every single day very easily. Meditate as soon as you get up in the morning, either stay in bed laying down or get up and sit on the bed and just do that. It's very simple, just the breathing process. Good quality sleep, physical activity and movement, stress management, which could be a whole session on its own. And again, chocolate, 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 chocolate. These are the simple things in life. But stress management is one of the main things about stress management, which has been linked, or stress has been directly linked to heart attack and stroke, is to notice when stress is building up. Don't wait to feel the crushing pain in the chest and you go down. Notice the symptoms: tight shoulders, tight neck, feeling unusual, any kind of difference that could be stress, the body trying to tell you that there's something going on. So as a bit of a note, and I'm gonna got something just in my way of the comments there. I'll have a look at the comments in a second. What are your favorite nutrients, herbs, or foods in general? It's not a poll, it's just for you to start thinking about. I'm going to look at some of these questions in a second. Oh, there's my references. So as part of presentations, I look at a wide range of references and I put them in the presentation just so you can see that my words and my slides are derived from academia and research, from my book, as well as different journal articles and various different published clinical trials and studies, etc. And these are the ones I've utilized, but I've read 260 or something extra ones on top of this just to put together the brief notes for today. And these are the ones I've included. And there's another slide there. So there's quite a lot of research and a lot of articles on cardiometabolic health, and more so in the last few years. As a general reminder, this presentation is for informational purposes only. I do have to remind everyone of this. It's not a substitute for medical advice. If symptoms persist, always talk to a health professional, always read the label and follow the directions for use. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention tonight and for having a bit of fun along the ride. I'm just about to open up the chat box for any kind of questions, but feel free to ask questions now, and I'll check the ones as we go through. But also why I'm here, start thinking about the different nutrients, vitamins, minerals, herbs, different amino acids that you can think about in daily health, and start thinking about how you can look into them and find out how else you can help benefit your health. So looking through these now, there's a lot of welcomes. Hi, everyone. Hi, people. There's a lot of people here tonight, actually. Is there a difference between eating organic and non-organic and grass-fed, free-range, grain-fed? I don't have all night to answer that one. Effie, that's a very good question. Yes, there are differences. Health-wise, eating fruit and vegetables, etc., is going to do you good anyway. Frozen versus fresh is another question we can add in there. If you have snap frozen fruit and veg, it is pretty much exactly the same as fresh. Difference is it's snap frozen and put into the freezer, so all the nutrients are kept in there. So that's the best thing about that. Organic is always best, but it's very hard to get. Grass-fed, free range is always better as well. So I don't want to get into the controversy, but I just want you to imagine that the cleaner and the better the quality, the better. However, for some people, some diets and lifestyles I've seen, if I can get them eating one carrot, it's made my day, it's made my year. Because some people, their diet is so poor due to, I don't want to say knowledge, but knowledge. They don't understand the health benefits of some foods, but also, the crisis, financial crisis as well. They can't afford a lot of good quality foods. So I'd rather someone have, frozen fruit and vegetables, generally speaking, rather than trying to find organic that they can't afford. But maybe pick one organic food as an example, and then make your way through. What about walking? Walking is always great. Feeling like your hands are swelled. I'm not too sure what that means. But if that's related to negative effect of walking and swelling in the hands, that could be due to vascular health and fluid pooling out of the arteries and veins. So you should probably get that checked, because that could be early signs of cardiometabolic health changes if there's fluid. But If not, it's just a general circulatory issue. There's 3 magnesiums. Which one is the best? There's multiple magnesiums, and you will find people will say a couple of good questions about different types of magnesium. People like magnesium glycinate because the glycine has been found to improve sleep, but you need to have several grams a day to do that. But magnesium glycinate is well absorbed in the digestive system through something called the glycine channels. They were on fire that day when they named it. The glycine channels for glycine to be absorbed across the gut wall into the body, and it seems to improve it more effectively. Amino acid chelates are also good, as well as citrate. Citrate works with buffering the acids in the gut when it's absorbed and going through a different pathway. And some people don't like magnesium oxide because in some people can lead to loose stools, so bowel issues. But if it's in your formula, if it's in your product, it's still in some, but it's combined with your glycines and your citrates, etc., it's normally fine. I'd rather someone have it. Was that 80% for the chocolate? People love the chocolate. 70% is the typical one. You can get 80%, 50%. The higher the number, the higher the cacao, C-A-C-A-O. Remember the spelling, because there's 75% cacao out there, and it goes off the shelf, and it's a lot of sugar. The bitterer it is, the higher the cacao. But around 70% is high quality. And that's the number that you're looking at. There's one I can't read. Couple of good thank yous. What about magnesium taurate or just taurine? Taurine is an amino acid that's very useful for metabolic pathways, liver health, brain health, neurotransmitters, and you can utilize magnesium and taurine in the same formula. Magnesium taurate's not as easy to get, so if you were to have magnesium and taurine together, that would help with the neurotransmitters, which improves your stress levels and your anxiety, depression, etc. Again, thank you everyone for your lovely comments. Really appreciate it. On the top of the list, carnitine, nattokinase, there's a lot of additional ingredients people are saying, which is fantastic. I love acetyl L-carnitine because it improves the absorption of carnitine into the body, and it's useful for the fatty acid metabolism. For the biochemistry loving people in there, it improves the activity of the Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle. It works with the beta oxidation pathway by allowing you to burn off the fats better. So sales of acetyl L-carnitine are going to go up tomorrow for its fat burning properties. Organic food is expensive, yes. However, as I said, you can sometimes start off with just one thing maybe and building up over time. Glycine is awesome. Glycine is a wonderful amino acid. It's very good for buffering flavors. So we can add glycine with our berberine containing herbs, for example. It has a bit of sweetness to it compared to other amino acids, and it's a good dosage that you can utilize for people. And you can have it at night. It will help you relax and calm into sleep. It won't put you to sleep. It's not like that kind of effect, but it calms and relaxes your body into the sleep mode, which is fantastic. There's a good one. Mandy, thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Julie Ellen. So thank you a lot of people for your lovely comments. It's been a lot of fun tonight because I know I'm about to get the wind up. What's the time say? Oh, 1 minute to go.
You did really
if you have
well.
any other further questions, please feel to ask them now because we're just winding down. But again, thank you also very much for today's session. As you can tell, I really love what I do with cardiometabolic health. I've held back a lot tonight, today, just to not get too excited. But there's a lot of things we can do to improve heart health, cardiometabolic health, and overall health. And it's part of what we want to do. We want to improve people's quality of life so they have better, longer, happier, healthy lives. And that's something we could simply do. It's very easy for us to do. I'm not too sure what that ingredient is that's just been asked. So there's a lot of things we actually can do to help people, help yourself, family and friends, and help society improve the quality of life of everyone and all beings. So again, thank you all very much. Really appreciate your comments and questions and having fun with you here in this session. Just seeing some more questions coming through. Glutamine. Glutamine is a good amino acid for muscle health, antioxidant capability, anti-inflammatory pathways. So there's quite a few. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Perfect. So again, I'd like to thank you all for coming here for this session. Really appreciate it. Wishing each and every one of you all the very best